Good evening, televiewers. You're welcome to another edition of Prime Hour on My Media Prime. We are going this day to be looking at the United States Senate Resolution 684 in its 116th Congress second session, calling on both warring factions in the northwest and southwest regions and Cameroon and the Cameroonian government to seek for ways to end the ongoing conflicts and to look for a possibility to engage in a broad-based, inclusive, reconciliatory dialogue without preconditions. We are going to be discussing this with the panelists who are in the house already. Some are still on their way. George Mofo is a social entrepreneur and a regular panelist with us here. He's been away for some time. We're glad to have you back.
Thank you, and the pleasure is very much very high, and I want to wish and extend best wishes to viewers of My Media Prime, and hope that by the end of the program we would have heightened their happiness.
Okay, also with us is Professor Mark Anthony, who is a Pan-Africanist. We're glad to have you.
Thank you. Good evening to you, Leo, and to Mr. Mofo. I want to say Happy New Year to all the My Media Prime, should I say, viewers. And to all the fans of this particular program, and to my family, precisely to my wife and kids, to all those of you out there who've made it into 2021. I want to say that we actually begun a good year. What will make this year become what we expect it to become is going to be our various contributions, and not in the number, because a lot of persons are interested in the number and not in what they are going to be doing to make the year profitable for them. So I expect that you should contribute in the year to make it a wonderful year.
Damai Jarvis is going to be coming in through Skype. Good evening, Jarvis, and welcome.
Good evening to Pamofo. Good evening to Professor Mark. Good evening, Cameroon, and special good evening to the President of the Republic, Professor Maurice Kamto, and alongside with the businessmen and women who are struggling to do business in Cameroon despite the existing socioeconomic challenges they do face. Courage to the businessmen and women.
We are awaiting the arrival into our studios of Senior Barrister and why are you laughing now, woman? What's funny? We hope that Andrin Atemibako and Senior Barrister Shimanuel are going to be joining us in the course of the program. They are held in traffic. But I'll start with you, George, Mr. Mofo. These resolutions from the U.S. Senate, is it not a déjà vu already?
Well, I like the cliche déjà vu, and some people will say déjà entendu. But again, besides, I think again these are political science cliches. A resolution is actually a policy guide for action, which means it's an imperative that the orientation now for it to be actualized is no more an element of doubt. It is supposed to be operationalized, especially based on the objective of which is supposed to be the reason for such a resolution to have been passed in the first place. But I want to say, truth be told, I'm not sure the U.S. love Cameroon more than Cameroonians. So we should be very careful here to give a hype out of it, because it is still Cameroonians who are going to decide to install peace, especially the Cameroonians of Northwest and Southwest. The realities speaks for itself. If you go to some towns in the Northwest and Southwest, like I did, sometimes, especially going beyond 15 kilometers out of Bamenda, I want to say I think it is not necessary for the US to tell us we need to install peace, because I am not sure any Cameroonian who used to know what Bamenda used to be before probably 2017. If you go back there now, from the heart of the city of Bamenda, where people don't wear masks again because they are afraid of a coronavirus, but they wear masks because they are afraid of dust. So you still see the paradox. I think besides the US Senate resolution, there is no more time for us to wait for external influence to tell us that we need peace. The time is now. But I think again, it is behoving of all the stakeholders, both within and without, to actually know that somebody said the president's role is to win peace, while the military role is to win the war. I think the military cannot win that war, neither can the other non-state actors win the war, but the president can win the peace, and I think he should do everything. We think that it is our right to ask him to win the peace in the northwest and the southwest and in other parts of Cameroon where there is tension.
Okay. Professor Mark Anthony, the resolution of start by going point by point to say calling on the government of Cameroon and separatist armed groups from the English-speaking northwest and southwest regions to end all violence, respect human rights of all Cameroonians, and pursue a genuine, inclusive dialogue towards resolving the ongoing civil conflict in Anglophone Cameroon.
We are so much used to with most of these resolutions, and like Mr. Mofo said, it could not be accredited to the United States to love Cameroon more than Cameroonians. We love Cameroon, and we believe that it is in our own benefit to see that peace actually reigns in this particular area, in the northwest and southwest, where there's war right now. I want to say that at times I get disturbed. It is true that America seems to be the main
the police of the world.
Yes, so let's just say the leading nation of the world. But that also does not mean that they should mingle into affairs of nations just because they feel like they are the leading nations of the world. We are not saying that they shouldn't speak for the good of things that should happen in the world, because we believe that if there's instability in Cameroon, it indirectly affects America wheresoever they are. But I also believe that we as Cameroonians, we have a part. We know how and where to handle it, where the problem is coming from and how to handle it. And if today the United States senators are passing resolutions upon resolutions and asking for peace to return, for ways to handle the situation, it is all those resolutions are coming, but we still see people are dying every day. And I will be sincere to say that I do not really expect that the United States should be the one to be asking that Cameroonians, or say there should be a means for peace to return. They are the highest nation in the world that creates instability in nations. They are the highest nation that create wars. They are the highest nation that go around destroying nations. And so all what they are saying there to me is just a means of covering up and say they are being the leaders. So I want to come back and say that in Cameroon, we believe that there is a means through which this war started and it could be ended. I remember that the president was returning from France, and after some soldiers had been killed, and he made a declaration declaring that for those who want to start the war, he's going to give them war. I'm putting in my words. And that is how it started. And so we also believe that this same person, the Mr. President Biya, has the capacity to stop this war by being able not only to follow resolutions from the United States, But he himself, he knows Cameroon, because if you look at the speech of the president at the end of the year, you discover that he's vexed with the situation that is happening in Cameroon. He's vexed with the various conditions in Cameroon. Though at a particular moment you want to see that he spoke as if he's coming from space, and considering the fact that he said that he limited it to the influence is coming only from external, where he said that it seems as if the problem we have is actually fired from outside. But I also want to believe that there are individuals inside that are behind.
Who are fueling what is happening?
Because of recent, just not to cut you short, Mr. Liu, of recent, we thought maybe things were coming down, and I saw some killings in Womb and in other places. So when you see that, you get to know that there are individuals right inside Cameroon who are busy making sure that peace should not return. So we should get to look into all that, and I think the president has the knife and the yam in dealing with that.
Tamai Jarvis, what has been your reading of this U.S. Senate resolution of the 116th Congress second session?
You understand that I agree with Pamufo and partially with Prof. Mark as far as the issue of interference is concerned about resolution of resolutions. The truth of the matter is that diplomatic language has a different tone it plays, and remember that diplomacy doesn't just it's not like an emotion that whether we like it or not. There's what we call principles guiding interference, and one of the things that you see the United States keeps on passing resolution upon resolution is because of the fact that there is what we call integrity of a state, and they take into consideration that that state is autonomous, and that state has its principles and its guidelines, and that state has a constitution that it must follow, and that president was voted to defend the constitution of that state. So before you interfere, you must have process or procedures that you follow. And take note that during this period, especially when Americans are going towards an election, you should not expect an interference or a quick interference. Or when Americans are projecting that in the next 2 years or in the next 1 year there will be a general election, both the Republicans and the Democrats are very cautious when it comes to foreign policy. That is why they want to ensure that whatsoever resolutions is made, it should be bipartisan, meaning that the Democrat at the Senate and the Republican at that committee must agree and unanimously vote for that action to be taken, such that when there is a repercussion or there is an effect, a negative effect, both parties are blamed. It's not like Democrats to be blamed that it was a Democrat interference or a Republican interference. This is what I make of that resolution, Leonard. That resolution is coming to tell France, it's directing it to France, not to Cameroonians per se. Because if you look at the resolution, there is a part that states that France in itself has not played a great role in ensuring that this broad-based dialogue takes place in Cameroon. And because they understand that France has a vested interest in Cameroon, and France is a principal player of Cameroon, the United States cannot just directly interfere. So they must ensure that they have passed on resolution upon resolution, which if there is an interference, it will go now to the United Nations that these resolutions were passed and nothing was done. That's why they're interfering. If you look at it critically, people are expecting that the US will just automatically come and declare that, hey, you people must dialogue. Hey, remember that the US believe that the government of Cameroon has the right to maintain its territorial integrity and protect its security. John Kerry and George Bush once said that the role of the military in any state is to win a war. That's why the military is trained to kill. The role now of the president is to win peace. Now, that's why when you see a communique like that is issued out, it's not just issued out for Cameroon government. It's issued out for stakeholders, key players, the various international nations involved. Because if there is to be an interference, especially in Cameroon, which principally France has a great role to play, the US must work hand in hand with France, and the US follow the pace of France. And if France says this, that, except they realize that they don't have at home, their political interest has been satisfied, there's no general election coming up, like after this 20 elections, you will see that between 2021, the US will have a great foreign policy to play. That's why you see prior to election, President Trump did not go much about foreign policy because he was very cautious. Remember that the U.S. has a strong power when it comes to Senate Intelligence Committee, and whenever things are done wrongly, these people are brought to Senate Intelligence Committee, and when you are faulted, you can be jailed. So by this end, in context, the U.S. is telling France and stakeholders and other nations that, hey, it is time you guys should strategize and ensure that effective dialogue comes to this nation.
Okay, we are going to be coming back to you, Tamari Jarvis, but the resolution goes further to say, whereas Cameroon is beset with multiple security challenges, including a Boko Haram insurgency in the far north region, cross-border conflict and criminality by Central African militia groups to the east, and a civil war involving the government of Cameroon and Anglophone separatist armed groups in the northwest and southwest regions, to say that the United States is very conscious of the security challenges Cameroon is faced with.
One of the things which diplomatic language should be looked upon is based on interest.
Okay.
Now, when you look at the geopolitics involved in this whole issue about the crisis in the northwest and the southwest, is more or less linked to the Gulf of Guinea. Because when you imagine that if not 60% of American petroleum or gas transit through that zone, from Nigeria, Chad, and all of those places to right down to Angola, all of that Gulf of Guinea, they need security there because that is what is needed to fuel the American economy. And then secondly again, when you look at, I want to also say there is an element that calls for a lot of, without being too hard on the Americans to say they are hypocrites. Remember, they started sometimes by withdrawing their military support. If they are concerned with the Cameroonian security, they wouldn't have withdrawn their military support. That the intelligence that they were giving.
Yeah, but they rested in
they wouldn't have withdrawn it if they were. I'm saying that they love Cameroonians because they're talking about peace in Cameroon. They're talking about civil war, which is not part of the other one, which is an external aggression to Cameroon and all of that. And now they're talking about stricto sensu within the, and then talking even of the what is called Anglophone crisis. Truth be told, I think when you listen to the actors, especially involved directly or indirectly, especially the financiers of this war, where are they based? They're based in the US. And even right up to yesterday, we still saw some of them still going on Facebook and broadcasting and talking about buying arms and sending to support those guys who are in the field with the guns and all of that. And so I want to say, and you say again, the language there is urge all sides. I mean, the basic English will tell you that they're advising. Again, but again, if you look at it again, you go detailing there, when you see this process start mounting, a resolution is meaning that there will be a time that they will start talking about, because in that resolution they talk about selective sanctions. So you cannot be advising people. You are using, in this case now, those of you who read history, you would have known about the carrot and the stick. But like I said, and I still insist, the people who are killed in Cameroon are Cameroonians. I think Cameroonians should take ownership of their country and ensure that peace comes into this country. The situation is not good. When we came here, one of the issues that came on their news was the issue of a mayor in Manfe celebrating, and you heard what those children said. 2021, they are still thinking that they'll go back to school after not going to school, and then going back to school in the second term, which means the whole of first term did not even go to school. And the council is still talking about how they are going to mobilize resources to assist those children go back to school. Are we imagining? When we even recall and look at other countries that spend all their time fighting war, especially liberation war, like in South Africa, they got liberation. where are the blacks today? They are still the most disgruntled. They are still seeing themselves as still being underprivileged because they don't have what it takes to enter the mainstream of economic development because they were not equipped educationally to be ready to take up their own development. So the issue here, I'm saying that if we want to fight the war, they should be able to identify their enemies, but again, let them not also compromise the future of certain innocent people they call collateral damages. And so I'm saying that, fine, Crisis is multifarious, it has many faces, it has other actors and the rest. But we want to look at the victims. Because when Prof was talking about the killings in Womb, I just imagine a situation where when they say that there are DDR centers, and the guys leave the forest or going towards the DDR center, with the nature and the nervousness of what can be going, because you need to go to the field and you see the number, the might of militarization around. It tells you that at the moment you just see anybody who is suspected, the next thing that you should do is just to trigger happy and just because it's like first to shoot for those who were watching cowboy films before. Because the situation is very, very tense. You enter beyond Baranda, going towards Bafut and the rest, your hair is standing on edge. Because it's a ghost environment. Everything is like abandoned. So the issue here, and I wonder how this transition is going to look like. Because fine, even the US starts sanctioning and say, okay, a certain minister cannot come to the US because they are doing selective sanctions and targeting officials of both sides. Does that resolve the problem of the child who has not been able to go to school? Does that resolve the problem of the person today? Before you go to a certain place, there are certain cars that can go to, which is pre-organized, that can go to certain communities. How do we resolve those type of issues? We need sustainable peace, and sustainable peace is participatory. Let Cameroonians in this 2021 start asking themselves, what can we do differently that has not been done, and not wait for and start making hype about a resolution from a foreign Senate office.
Okay, you think that we shouldn't consider that, but to you, I see the U.S. Senate says, whereas the official action and policies of the Francophone dominated government of Cameroon have repressed English-speaking Cameroonians politically and economically throughout the history of Cameroon, dating back to the reunification of British-administered Southern Cameroons and French Cameroon under the federal system. That is in October 1961. But Anglophones have been part of this government since then.
That is very true, Mr. Liu, and that is why at times we get to ask a question: why is it that we have our own brothers and sisters in this government and yet we are suffering the most? You see, it's like most of them who find themselves in this particular government, they go in there for themselves and their families, not for the Anglophones. And that is enough reason why a lot of Anglophones are more disappointed, because they think that their own brothers who are involved are going to speak for them. They are going to help in solving their own problems. But when they go there, some of them are the same persons who claim that there is no crisis. They openly say that there is no problem. And when you hear somebody who is supposed to be fighting for you end up saying that there is no problem, what do you think? And that is the reason why I think in this case, when the United States start pointing out that the Anglophone population has been actually marginalized since the independence of Cameroon, it is a point. But that is not enough. That is not what we expect. The truth is that this marginalization has been for the past years, but there was no individual that was shot. It is until when a group of hoodlums actually came up with guns.
Okay.
We are not refusing the fact that it was triggered by a situation where the military got involved in shooting innocent persons. Some people took it over. And finally, some individuals had to take it over. And today we are in a situation which has gone beyond all these ideas of resolutions and resolutions. We know that they have their way of dealing with issues, like Mr. Mofo and Jarvis were talking about their diplomatic whatsoever. But that, to me, is not what is going to solve Cameroon's problem.
What is going to solve Cameroon's problem?
As I said earlier,
if you don't want them to be, yeah.
What is going to solve Cameroon's problem is us. Cameroonians.
History teaches us that in 1953 or thereabouts, when this same community called Anglophones were quote unquote said to be marginalized in Nigeria, what did the politicians there do at that time?
Good.
So what stopped them from doing it now?
Okay, you think the politicians can stop the problem?
Yes, so Mr. Leo, what I was driving to say is this. It is in our hands to deal with it. How? If in case we have seen and we do not love the way we have been treated in this particular relationship, then it is time for Cameroonians, in fact, let me say Southern Cameroonians, to then come together as one and be able to speak to themselves. Come up with, let me use the word, their own resolutions which they are going to present to the government. And apart from that, borrowing the point of Mr. Mofo, we have politicians who are involved in this same government. They are the ones who are supposed to be speaking for us. If possible, let them withdraw and be able to say, enough is enough. A lot of our people are dead and nothing is done. It is true, when we talk of nothing is done, some people say we have different commissions that have been set up to handle the situation. We have the national dialogue that passed 2 years back that came up and was to settle the situation. We have the special status that have been given to, but all those things haven't stopped the war. We are talking of regional elections. That
but what do you think? What do you think can stop the war when we have persons who say they want something, nothing short of an independence? How do you stop such a war?
Mr. Leo, that's a radical position that some individuals have taken, and which we believe that.
You say some individuals when you know that the IG. Sako-led IG wants independence. Sokadef of Akwanga wants independence. ADF wants independence. Ayuk Tabe's IG's faction wants independence, and a host of others. You say some individuals.
Mr. Leo, that is
these are existing structures.
Those are, you call them structures. Those are existing Facebook groups. I should not speak and somebody stand against me, but I will be sincere. There is no structure about it that is.
When you say these Facebook groups and we are all saying that there should be dialogue. Are you saying that the Cameroon government should dialogue with Facebook groups?
Mr. Leo, we already know.
Should be known that
when I speak and point out that there are Facebook groups, is because the names you use they do not exist to us, but we know that there are individuals who are behind this issue. And these individuals could be called to the table for discussion, for negotiation.
Okay.
But as long as you call those names, IG, Sokadev, those are just names that people are creating in order to have an opportunity. But we are not behind those names.
Okay.
What we are behind is seen into it that our problem is solved. We are all Southern Cameroonians, we call it Anglophones. And we do not know any other name apart from the Southern Cameroons. So if we have to deal with that, we should deal with it as Southern Cameroonians, not as Sokadev, not as IG, not as
Are you as a Southern Cameroonian taking responsibility for what the military is not doing in the Northwest and Southwest region?
Taking responsibility for what the military is not doing.
Yes, because the military is also engaged in some hostilities, but there are also persons who are engaged in hostilities in the Southwest region. Are you taking responsibility for that? Because you say we are Southern Cameroonians. Yeah.
Mr. Leo,
yes,
I will not take responsibility for military killing anybody or for gangs killing anybody.
Okay.
What I expect is that as Southern Cameroonians, or using the word Anglophones, it is time for us.
Who is fighting the war?
That is the issue. That is the issue.
I think let us. I always said history should be able to be our compass. Even though some people will argue that the resolution that
the US Senate?
The resolution or what the plebiscite or the whatever happened 1961 that brought the two parties together was never it is actually an organized issue plebiscite that necessitated these two entities to come back together as a federal republic. But somebody is also saying somewhere that some document or whatever is not the Constitution of 1961 is not recorded somewhere in the archives of the United Nations. But what is clear in the diplomacy we are talking about here, what is recognized is that there is a Cameroonian Republic that includes both English and French-speaking Cameroonians. That is the facts of history. That is the facts of law. And that is the facts of whatever we have been living up till now. Now, before we even go to talk about whether we should one day separate and have independent countries, the last time that Anglophones came together as an entity to meet, which was in 1994 in Bamenda, the resolution that came out from that second Anglophone, all-Anglophone conference was never independence now. It was talking about a two-state, go back to this two-state federation. So what is happening today when we are talking about independence is an extremist, as far as I'm concerned, is a bargaining position that they are using to get what that official position of 1994 came out with. And it is just the logical that people should have a position that from that position they get to move to defend their interest. Okay,
we just been joined by Andrew Atemibako. Andrew, I'm sure you've gone through that resolution. What is the appraisal you have of it?
You mean by the
yes, the US resolution, yeah.
Well, Mr. Leo, I would say that to me it has no impact, and they should not feel that they have a solution to offer to the people of Cameroon, because the way I look at it, it's today a concern to the US, because I want to believe that the interest of France is not being protected. So now the issue is on the table that the UN or the US should put some small pressure on the Cameroon government to see how they can come together with the armed separatist fighters to resolve the conflicts. You see, but Mr. Liu, in America, every day you have at least minimum 313 persons that die of gunshots. Every year you have 1,700 and something persons that die of gunshots every year in America. Coming down to the color, in America, we have seen very unusual killings, to the George Floyd, to the 2002 and 2004 of a young boy that was killed. The cases are just too much. So let America manage their own crisis and allow the Cameroonians be able to manage their own crisis. I believe in the second article of the 7th Charter of the United Nations spells out clearly that the United Nations do not violate the sovereignty of any nation to intervene in their matter. So I want to believe that, Mr. Leo, the Americans do not feed my family, neither do they feed Cameroonians. So let them manage their own affairs and allow Cameroonians to manage their affairs, because they understand, being the members of the UN National Security Council, which the African member states do not have any representatives at that level. So they cannot speak for us, because we should have people who should speak on the behalf of the whatever is happening in Cameroon. Should have been people who have origin from this part of the world, and not people who are the ones causing most of the problems that we are facing today. We don't deny that many of our leaders are also responsible and irresponsible of not being able and capable of managing their own problems. So Mr. Leo, coming from the Senate, 12 of the senators who decided to send a letter to the Cameroon government, I believe that this is not their role to play, because they don't have that genuine concern when it comes to the affairs of Cameroon, because we have seen how they have been looking from so many years, how the blacks have been so maltreated in the United States, and looking at the violence which is there. So America itself has bigger problem than what Cameroon is facing. We don't have more than 500 persons dying every year, even from this Anglophone crisis. You are talking of 317 or 15 deaths recorded every day, gun violence in America.
But those are criminal issues.
Mr. Leo, I am saying that everybody has a problem in his own home. let another man not leave his own home, because we don't make resolutions to tell them how to manage their own problem. When they entered Libya, they did not consult the AU or the member state or ask Cameroon what was their position to enter Libya. They violated their own law, which they put in the United Nations for all the member states to respect. When they entered into Iraq, they did the same. So what I'm simply trying to say here, Mr. Leo, coming now back to the event which is happening in Cameroon, I will say that we have the history to examine the history very well. I have still said again and time without number that it will take the population, because the government is absolutely not the regime or the CPDM in place. The government is the population. Coming to the northwest and in the southwest, the government of those two regions is the population. The population needs to come together, as Prof rightly said. The people themselves need to be able to agree on what they want. That agreement is not there. So once you don't have an agreement, who then do you talk to? Because the very people that you are expecting them to come together, the very people area that you are calling for peace to come there, do not agree among themselves. And again, Mr. Leo, I want to say this so that Cameroonians should understand. This issue is on the table today, that stop the war in the English region. It is only because the war has turned against the people from that region. It is now against them. When it was not against them, you will not hear stop the war. In the beginning, when this thing started, Mr. Leo, majority people supported it, and we did not hear stop the war in the northwest and southwest. Today, it is a subject on the table because the war has turned against the very people who supported it. Same like the elites of the northwest and southwest became a growing concern of insecurity, because they became a major target. We are hearing of the 2020 of a silencing on gun in Africa, is because the elites of all the member states in Africa have become now a major target. By the time when it did not affect them, they did not mention it that stop this. Only when now it has become a growing concern, now they say stop the war. So the question here is, Mr. Leo, these many boys who are in the diaspora, who many of them are sponsoring what is happening on ground zero and instigating violence there in ground zero, can the US not talk to them? The ones that are living in Europe, can EU not talk to them? The ones that are living in America, what stops the senators or the Senate to call them and ask them, what do we do? So at the end of the day, Mr. Leo, let us not contradict so many things.
Yeah,
at
but
the end
we saw the Undersecretary for African Affairs, Tibunaj, call those who are engaged in violent activities to cease, and if not, they were not going to discuss with them.
Yes, Mr. Liu. So coming back to where we are, because
this resolution talks about whereas the conflict in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon has caused considerable instability and human suffering, with more than 3,000 deaths linked to the conflict, and according to the United Nations agencies, approximately 3 million people are in need of humanitarian assistance. Approximately 60,000 Cameroonian refugees have fled to Nigeria, and approximately 700,000 persons are internally displaced. But we see America assisting now. Why do you think that America is not genuinely concerned with what is happening here?
Mr. Liu, let us not be ignorant, because the way Africa seems to be functioning, it's like getting all the member states to work as a team has always been the challenge with the African member states. So it's easy to deal with us individually. So it seems as if now that they are talking about what is happening in Cameroon, claims as if they have a genuine concern with what is happening here, Mr. Leo. We have seen worse genocides in Africa whereby they stood by, watched, and did nothing. And even in that midst of all those violence, they took advantage of the situation and stole natural resources from Africa.
Yeah, but they learned their lessons, maybe. What
lessons did they learn, Mr. Leo? I remember in, permit me to say this, in 2006, I was with a Liberian who fled Liberia due to the conflict that was in Liberia, told me that the Americans that came to Liberia peacekeeping force remained at the shores of Liberian shores and were exploiting gold and diamond. Why the people in Liberia were there killing each other. So what am I saying here, Mr. Liu? We are not ignorant with what happens in all the other member states in Africa. The most recent case is the election that took place in Central Africa. Why was Russia sending troops there? Why was France sending troops there? Only because France has, these are players that are playing the same game, thinking that they have us at heart. When the president the former ex-president in Central Africa was ousted because he was not serving the interest of France, an election now is being coming whereby he's being sponsored by some other government to prevent the election from taking place. France sent troops to make sure that election should go through. The next question I want to ask you is that when Ouattara in this last election that he did in Ivory Coast, how many persons that when France was supporting Ouattara into power? So they cannot be concerned. They cannot concerned.
Tamai Jarvis, I don't know whether you buy the position of Andrew Natem Bako, but when you look at the rising figures, 3,000 deaths, 3 million people are in need of humanitarian assistance, 60,000 Cameroonian refugees have fled to Nigeria, and approximately 700,000 persons are internally displaced. Are these not reasons enough for the international community to be concerned and very worried?
Mr. Liu, you understand that when it comes to the principle of intervention, humanitarian or humanitarian crisis is what triggers intervention, and there is a scale in terms of humanitarian intervention. There is what we call the 5-Likert scale. The 5-Likert scale, as far as international community is concerned, is that they weigh it in terms of one. The one is how many people have been killed. 2, how many women and children are in need of support. 3, how bad is it going to affect the regional stability of that environment? That is it going to affect other countries that they have vested interest in? 4, those countries, if in case the instability persists, are we going to have terrorist movements that will come and implant themselves and plan attack to come and attack our different countries? 5, they look at how beneficial will that be in their home politics, in terms of how will that be in their home politics. Now, if you look at where America intervened, like in Syria, in Syria we have Yemen that they are planning to intervene and they are giving humanitarian support. We look at where they intervene in Libya, they will tell you that they look at this 5-Likert scale, and the 5 scale gives them the ability to do full intervention. If the humanitarian crisis is much, it means that they should attack. If they see that there's an advantage from the home politics, that if they intervene, it will give each party a good leverage for further elections, that yes, they intervene in this side and they brought peace or they brought mineral resources. If you look at what Trump said, just to tie with a bit with what Andrew Bako said, what Trump said that Obama going to leave Iraq poorly, and that he withdrew the troops poorly, that the troops would have still been in Iraq and exploit all the minerals. That is because of the minerals that are in Iraq that make ISIS to come to Iraq. Now, the pretext that America used in all intervention is that the areas that have conflict, terrorists have come to that area and they are planning attack to America, to launch an attack on America. That's why they are coming to that area to ensure that there's peace and stability. But far from it, I want to again disagree a bit with Andrew Ibako in terms of the fact that let America leave Cameroon alone. America did not invite themselves into the conflict. Cameroon invite America to the conflict, because if we had handled this crisis well at the beginning, America would not have been a stakeholder. And Andrew Ibako raised an issue that why is it that America cannot withdraw or take all those activists who are abroad, who are responsible, and question them? The truth of the matter here is that America is leaving those people as a leverage to buy their position in Cameroon. Because if America intervene and remove those people, that they have not consolidated their position, they are not interested in Cameroon. They have American businessmen and women that may want to establish businesses in Cameroon. They have military operation that they may want to establish in Cameroon. Just if they carry out this action now and punish all those who are abroad instigating this violence, it will not give them that position to want to impose themselves in America, or as far as regional interest is concerned. That's why those people in America, they are kept there as a bargaining chip in terms of, if France has to come to the table, America will say, okay, France will give you this set of people and you will have to agree with us that we have this in return. So we give you these people, you will have this in return, and that's how it's settled. So that's why you see those people being in America purposely violating this, some laws as far as humanitarian conflict is concerned, but yet America allows them because it's for a purpose, it's for economic influence. The bourgeoisie tells the government, keep these guys here. When you come to establish business in that country, who want to go there and give them as a bargaining chip. America will tell you, hey, this is so company and industry want to establish in Cameroon. We see that there's instability. We will give you these guys, and you will intend sign us this. So it's an issue of interest. Now, in terms of direct intervention, remember that Cameroon does not have a position where America can claim that the war in Cameroon, in North and Southwest region, can be used by terrorists like ISIS, like Boko Haram, and other terrorist groups to want to come and plan an attack and want attack America. No, that's why they don't have an interest in it. But they have an interest in Libya. Why? Because Libya was a hub. Libya was an area where America felt that when that crisis persists, terrorists will come inside and plan attack to launch America, to attack American embassies. Remember, American embassies have been attacked across Africa. Like in Kenya, we had an attack in Kenya. We had an attack in Somalia. We had attack in other American embassies. So when there are conflict in areas where American embassies and great institutions are, they directly look for a possibility to intervene because they feel like terrorists, which or terrorist states that they consider, may leave their area, may not be able to attack America.
Okay, Jarvis. Jarvis, good evening, my beloved Cameroonians, and Happy New Year to all, most especially to my ex-principal, Mr. Zephaniah Nek, and Mr. Ngwacham Edwin, all from Batibu, writing from Loom. Good evening to you. Happy New Year to you, Mr. Leonard, and the panelists in the studio. To end the Anglophone crisis, President Biya should resign the order he declared to the Anglophones in the military. There is what is called a chain of command, and President Biya is the commander-in-chief. Until that declaration is made by the president, the military will continue their killings as usual. Raymond is writing from the United Arab Emirates. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and to all in the studio. It is Annabelle from California, USA. This is the best program in the world. I can't miss it. Mr. Liu, the new man who just joined, okay? Ibako is not a Pan-Africanist. Annabelle, good evening to you. Now, Judge Mr. Mofo, whereas the Department of State 2019 country report on human rights practices for Cameroon cited significant human rights abuses for security forces and separatist armed groups in Cameroon, including unlawful or arbitrary killings, forced disappearances, torture, arbitrary detention, repression of fundamental rights, and violence against women and children. Both sides are faulted here.
Yes, and that is the reality. I just told you, if you go to probably most of the villages, you will discover that either you see very young children or very elderly persons who are just like stuck because they don't know where to go. You ask yourself, where are the young persons, men and women? These are the people who come back, especially on both sides, and actually terrorize whoever is still having some reasons to have a resource or whatever. According to them, even what they are doing, it is like a military that is sent to defend a population, think that the population by itself has to make an effort to also give them some extra goodies. And so they threaten them and tell them that, look, you invited this thing, I would have been sleeping in my house with my family and the rest, and I'm here, so you want to sleep, you better open this drinking parlor now, and most of the time they even drink without paying. Talk less of these other hoodlums, these guys who, for some reason, they have been able to see blood, and to them now seeing it spill from one end to another. They use it even to their old parents in the community and threaten them and tell them, don't carry your goods to the market today. So you find the people are actually living in a catch-22 situation where they cannot go to their farms because there are days that they declare that you don't go to the farms. They are collecting illegal fees and taxes on certain day in the name of supporting the war effort. And when we talk about all of this and even inviting these guys who are talking about a solution, have you ever, in your quiet moment, ask yourself, what is the American official position vis-a-vis this Anglophone crisis? Have you ever asked yourself that question?
No, but I'm sure that that position has been made consistently clear, not too consistent by the Undersecretary for African Affairs now.
So what I'm saying is that if the bone of contention is for separation, is for independence, is America for independence or separation or division of Cameroon?
No, but recently the Undersecretary said they respect the territorial integrity.
Beautiful.
And even this resolution talks of reconciliation, broad-based dialogue, reconciliated dialogue. Yeah.
Fine. So if there are separatists who are fighting, America definitely does not stand to support the separatists, which means that we cannot sit here and be asking and be thinking that for some reason, because of geopolitics and the rest, they want clearly to vote for the division of Cameroon into two entities. But again, I keep on saying and I keep on invoking the power of history. You know, when Mobutu had stayed in power in the former Zaire for a very long period, and this same arm with Kabila and his groups, where they invaded from Rwanda or from wherever, and this is how it started, and that civil war entered into Zaire. America came in again because they were the ones who propped up Mobutu to become what he was at that time, as one of the greatest dictators of our times. And then they started also using this same type of double speaks, asking Mobutu to reconcile, to call them to action, to do all of that, and see the way Mobutu ended up dying like a puffer. So we should be very, very careful thinking that America can love Cameroon more than Cameroonians. That does not give leverage to any person, especially a civilian, to think that he can be able to say that they want to shoot all the military people to install another state, that you actually see the evidence that is actually going on there, that these are people who cannot and will not be able to live with the realities of managing a state. Talk less of using diplomacy and all of that. Listen to all their rantings, listen to all their declarations and all of that. They are first of all not united. You were calling a series of groups there and all of that. The fact that they are not even legitimate in terms of even garnering the broad-based support of the people whom they are claiming to be fighting for, among themselves, there are daggers drawn, they are quarreling. So you start asking yourself, now that you have not even gotten the booty, you start fighting amongst yourselves. Then by the time you get that booty, are we not going to have a scenario? Look at, going back to what has been termed today, Democratic Republic of the Congo. Up to today as we speak, Mobutu died some 10 years ago. They are still in civil war. So let us be very, very clear about this thing, and let history be our teacher to enable us know that we have communicated. And let me also say something to reassure us, because most of the politicians who were ignorantly thinking that what was happening was just a group of disgruntled, unemployed Cameroonians and all of that, a lot of them now, they are coming out with the reality to also understand that they have to also register their name in the positive side of history. For the first time, there's a ministry that used to have in one of its inspectorate in the central administration, 11 inspectorates, and there were just one particular position that was always given to an Anglophone, what we call somebody from the northern and southwest. But because an Anglophone today became a minister 2 years ago, and decided not to restructure that particular, and say that the merit of all of this should not be based on because you are from one country and another. Nobody was assigned to a particular position, and today we have in that position 3 English-speaking Cameroonians. So what I will say a lot, let us also, like people who are talking now, challenge some of those people that and remind them and engage them that if the head of state has given you a particular position, it's also that you should be able to redistribute the wealth of this country to go back to your community.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Liu, and good evening to you all in the house. So all we need is the war to end. Okay. Esther, good evening to you, writing from Kumba. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Aiden Vioff, watching you from Halifax, Canada. I always find time to follow your program. Even when I am at work, I love your program. Continue to do this great work, and God will bless you. Thank you very much, Pastor Bache. Mr. Liu, happiest New Year to you and your panel. The USA has passed some resolutions as the world leading power, but guns keep entering and people are killed every day. Here are my own resolutions. Accept that there is a problem. Talk God before talking to the people. Always take the first step to solve the crisis by, be you senior or junior, sympathize with the people's feelings. Confess your part of the conflict. Attack the problem, not the people. Cooperate as much as possible. Emphasize on reconciliation than resolution. Let's try this as Cameroonians. From Pastor Bache Ruben. Kum, writing from Kumba. Good evening to you, Pastor. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I love the program, but what I want to say is if some people don't want to talk, they should not talk, okay? Good evening to you. Now, we have just been joined by your senior barrister, Ashu Emmanuel. I'm sure it's traffic that kept him all this while. Good evening, senior barrister. You have the document with you. It's calling on both sides to consider the situation of the people who are suffering and to see how they can reconcile their differences.
Good evening, Mr. Liu. Happy New Year.
Yeah, thank you.
Good evening, Prof. Happy New Year. Good evening, fellow panelists. Good evening, good people out there. Well, once in a blue moon, we have this type of good news coming from Uncle Sam's country. And I hope that this time around, people who thought that civil war that has been plaguing our region for 4 years and counting will have to stop. Because this one is clearly a roadmap that the incoming administration may have to follow. And any person who wants to play, well, will have but himself to blame. Like you rightly said, the American Senate has made several recommendations inside this resolution and specifically instructed the government to make sure that all those who indulge in the violation of human rights in southern Cameroon or northwest and southwest regions should be brought to book, should be identified and brought to book. And further, they asked the international community to collaborate so that dialogue between the two sides, because see the problem that has always been coming up. See, the government always say, we shall negotiate with who? It is clearly said. The separatist fighters, the government. So now nobody will say we don't know with whom to negotiate. Clearly, there are two sides in the conflict, and they've been asked to address the root causes. Address the root causes. So there is no more room for hide and seek. Well, we've all seen the appointments that the incoming American president is making. You see that he took somebody from Nigeria. It's unlike Donald Trump, who was not interested in Africa. This is somebody who took a senior minister from next door Nigeria. He stated that he is not going to close his eyes to Africa. And the lady who has been sent to the United Nations, and even the vice president was one of the senators who was involved in one of the resolutions, the earlier resolutions concerning Southern Cameroon. So this administration that is coming in is not going to look at this crisis like the previous one. So I think that
but many persons are saying this is not the first resolution. What is different with this one?
Excuse me, sir. Any person who says it's not the first resolution should first of all go through it. Read it first before you start making any noise, because read it. You see, first of all, from the word go, they tell you that mindful of the fact that this is happening, all the atrocities have been put down. They have all that in their mind. And then now they come to address themselves to the real issues. So any person who says it's not the first time should show us another resolution passed by that Senate that is as far-reaching as this one. Because here they've asked the UN Security Council to look into this thing. They say previously there was an area conference that was organized, but we want this time around, we want it to be actually examined by the UN Security Council. So it is not a child's play. I think these guys, they mean business, and the actors in the field are supposed to take heed of this warning that is coming, because for the first time we hear they ask that humanitarian access be facilitated.
Oh, but severally we've had similar outings now.
No. It was a recommendation. They were asking the government to make sure that there is. I think that was Mr. Gutierrez who said so. But this time the Senate, U.S. Senate is saying that. Okay,
the U.S. Senate is more powerful than the UN.
The U.S. Senate is asking the U.S. government to make sure that is possible. You see, as a roadmap, I see this as a policy roadmap, which the government is going to follow.
Okay, which the government is follow, but they say whereas in June 2019, I would have loved Jarvis to come in here. They say whereas in June 2019, the government of Switzerland announced that together with the Center for Humanitarian Dialogue, it was facilitating a dialogue between the government of Cameroon and armed opposition groups to support a resolution of the Anglophone crisis. My question to you first is, why describe them as armed opposition groups to support a resolution of the Anglophone crisis, and possibly why it did not work out? We saw a faction that backed the Swiss talks and another faction that did not.
You understand that there is what we call a universal definition of fighters or insurgencies. For example, if you look at the way the terms of terrorism is in America, or the terms of fighters is in America, it's different from the terms of fighter in Cameroon. But when you look at the general context, as far as international convention is concerned, those who are agitating, especially in Anglophone region, are considered as armed fighters. Now, the reason why they urge both parties to pursue the Swiss-led dialogue is because the cause is genuine. The origin of the problem is a genuine problem. The U.S. realized that it is not just people imposing themselves, like the case is in Somalia, or like the case is in other areas like in Iraq, or the case is in Raqqa in Syria. They understand these are people of a particular ethnic group of Anglophone origin who have been grossly marginalized. If you look at their resolutions, the resolution stated that the marginalization of the English people as far as political economy is concerned. So those people, the U.S. 25th Amendment gives room for people to do what called self-defense, and you have the right to defend yourself in terms of arms. That's why you see that they would prefer the state of Cameroon should move with this armament in Switzerland in a neutral venue. If you look at the Gender resolution, that resolution says that the dialogue should be possibly with the aspect of a third party, such that it will be guaranteed. Now, why it did not work out, this is it, I earlier explained that the issue with Cameroon is because of France. France has a great amount of decision to make in Cameroon. And why it did not work out is simply because the French saw that if this happens to go effectively in terms of the Anglophone and the government sit and discuss mutually in terms of resolving this conflict, their interests would definitely die down, because the U.S. have something to give on the table. If the U.S. is saying that these guys should come on the table, it means that the U.S. is backing the non-state actors on the table on the grounds that they will have at least a particular leverage to do their business in Cameroon and vice versa. Now, it did not work out simply because the various government of France saw that there was that need for this thing not to work out. Because
are you saying that it is France? It is France that is holding the Swiss talks not to hold, and what is stopping persons like Abacho who are separatists, who are members of the separatist movement, but who have clearly said that they don't believe in the Swiss-led talks? We have persons like Eric Tato who says they don't believe in the Swiss-led talks. I'm sure Mark Barretta and a host of others. Are you saying that France is sponsoring them not to back the Swiss talks?
There is what we call a physical and an emotional aspect of this. Switzerland, you should understand that these guys, Ayabacho and the rest, has a role to play in terms of how they are treated in the dialogue table. France has a role, and France, let me explain how France come in terms of ensuring that this dialogue with these guys of the no-state armed group should not be effective. This is one, you plan ahead. Two, you ensure that the organizers of the conference are divided. If you look at Switzerland is dominantly a French-speaking country. And if you look at those who are negotiating in Switzerland, ask yourself, this is in negotiation. In negotiation, there is a process we call building the third side. Those who are coming on the table, who are the negotiators that sit in Switzerland? It's not just the guys that they could be Swedish guys, they're sponsored by a certain particular country. So the reason why it fails was simply because this set of countries have antagonized these guys to make sure that the dialogue fails. And let me tell you that, America, I would disagree with Senior Barrister Ash a bit. America has one foreign policy. Whether it's Biden, whether it's Trump, whether it's Obama, if you look at their political debate, their debaters, they have one policy. And the issue with Cameroon, the government, the current administration that is coming now, will not be different from the same way they treated Anglophone crisis as the Trump administration, because of the fact that Cameroon is not a strategic area for them. Secondly, Cameroon, in terms of the 5-letter scale, Cameroon is not a breeding ground for terrorists to come in and perpetrate harm to affect American companies or American businesses. Thirdly, the humanitarian situation of Cameroon is in the hands of France. France has a direct colonization of Cameroon. So you will not expect America to want to treat Cameroon the same way they treat other nations. Look at what happened in the protests in Nigeria. The U.S. gave Britain the sole arm to take decision. As far as a country was unanimously or directly colonized by a country that has a veto power, when it comes to interference from another veto power, it takes time, it takes procedures, and they don't just react spontaneously. How did they intervene in Libya? Libya had no form of central control in terms of the veto power. France gave the green light. So France joined America. France was the first to launch an attack in Benghazi. So America followed. It was not like America launched the attack before France. You look at, there's what we call that mutual agreement. Before that is done, France and America sit behind the scene and discuss about their interests. This is my interest, this is your interest. I give you these guys of the no-state armed groups in America, then you give me this certain portion of business to do in Cameroon. If France agree, US agree, the Swiss talk will hold.
Okay, that is your position. Now, okay.
You see, let us keep all of the bickering aside at the end of the day, and like I said, talking from this platform, I'm talking more about the Cameroonian perspective.
Okay.
Because that's what I can defend more, and having lived and seen the realities on the field. All of these other persons, whether be the Swiss, Americans and French and the rest, these are persons who will never ever love Cameroon more than their own country. So the first thing is that they have an interest in whatever they are doing. You remember, even the same Swiss ambassador in Cameroon has gone to the presidency and has actually made public declaration on what is actually going, but they have not been able to buy over the officials of this country in terms of really, you see
pushing for this.
Yes,
but they were reinvited to Cameroon now.
Of course, that's what I'm saying.
But there's something that is not.
That's what I'm saying. This negotiation is multifaceted in such a way whereby even within the political system,
not everybody buys
this particular direction. And don't forget that even at the level of the guy who is in prison, Ayuk Tabi, Ayuk Sisiku, whereby he has been contacted by some officials.
He prefers this other.
Of course. Yeah. So the truth be told, I've been in Yaoundé for the past 1 month. The reality is there. if you were going to Yaoundé before as an English-speaking Cameroonian, if you go there now and you are talking along the corridor, the admiration, the respect that they give to you, they know these are people for no good, for some reason they are proving that somebody can defend a position without blinking, without hypocrisy, like what obtained before now.
Okay.
And they are seeing that there's a generation that is on now, that the best thing they can do, English language now is a commodity in this country, that every average Cameroonian who is French speaking is struggling to be able to align, because they still love the way the people have been able to consistent. That's one of the good things about this so-called Anglophone crisis that is on. Okay. But the point that is, at the end of the day, let us know that we cannot fight a war till thy kingdom come. We should be able to also start building strategy of what happens when this war comes to an end. These people that we are now disfiguring and not letting people go to school, what is going to be their position?
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Happy New Year to me. Talking alone won't help or solve the problem. What we need is a positive action that will bring this war to an end. Lives are too precious to be wasted. Eva is writing from Kumba. Happy New Year to you, Eva. Prof. Mark and Tony, they say, whereas though a major national dialogue, whereas in September 2019, President Biya hastily announced a major national dialogue chaired by Prime Minister Ngute from September 30th to October 4th, 2019 in Yaoundé to examine the ways and means to respond to the deeply held aspirations of the populations in the Northwest and Southwest region. Whereas though the major national dialogue led to some concessions by the government of Cameroon on broader democratization issues, including the release of some political prisoners, including the leader of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, Professor Maurice Kamto, and some of his associates after 9 months of detention. Is that where they find a problem? That the major national dialogue was deeply held aspirations of the population in the Northwest and Southwest region, but a resolution immediately after was in favor of the release of Maurice Kamto.
You see, Leo, when we are looking at that particular dialogue in the first place, I like the word they used. It was hastily taken. And that particular dialogue, to me, actually had no effect, because it was not... some people claim that it was a dialogue that was meant to solve the problem. But from what I discovered is that that particular dialogue was meant to handle national problems in Cameroon. In fact, was a dialogue that was organized to deal with Cameroonian problems, not just the Anglophone problem. The Anglophone problem only came in as a side problem. But I think that from what the American resolution is asking, the Cameroon government needs to organize a dialogue that is particularly to deal with this crisis, this particular war that is taking place in the Northwest and the Southwest. Because in relation to the issues on the ground, when you look at it, immediately after that dialogue, Kamto was released. Yes, so I can accept with them that in that case, it was a problem that was used in handling national problems, not the Anglophone problem. Yes, from that particular dialogue, we ended up having what we call a special status handed over to the people of the Northwest and Southwest, which to me, that particular special status is not the solution to the problem. So if we are supposed to go talk about peace, I think not hitting so hard on the American resolution, because like I said earlier, from a Pan-Africanist position, I do not buy with any foreign intervention. But I believe also that if we are going to, if the crisis is going to actually be solved, and we have peace return, the Cameroonian people, and precisely the people from the Anglophone section of Cameroon, we need to come together. At this particular moment, I started saying something. I said, these guys are so separated that at the end of the day, we have a problem on how to deal with the issue. You call SCAF, you call, I remember you called the ADF, you call the...
IG has two factions. Ayuk Tabe led and Sako led. Sukadev led by Akwanga Ebenezer. ADF led by Chu Ayaba, and host of others. Yeah.
So that is where we already have a problem, Mr. Liu. If these factions cannot unite. Let's say even if they do not want to come and say, okay, we are standing under one, let them form a coalition, which is going to permit them to have a strong position to negotiate. Because you can't be talking with the people whom you don't know exactly who is who.
Yeah, because
this one will stand, the next day this one will be against, the next day this one is standing against. So at the end of the day, we do not have a position. So I am expecting that if they really want to solve the problem, because from my observation, some of them don't want the problem to be solved. They want to use it as a means to make their wealth. And they have already been doing that. So if they really want the problem to solve, then it is time for them to come together and form a coalition that will permit them to be able to talk along with the government and with whatever body that is going to come to negotiate. At this particular moment, nobody will be willing. I don't think the Cameroon government will be willing to talk to a group of persons from different corners. That's why I told you, those at a particular moment we cannot claim that is a structure that is established. You call it IG, you call it AD, you call whatever name. We cannot claim that it's a structure that is established. At this particular moment, those who are onlookers will be looking at it as faction groups that are existing only on Facebook. But we believe that these people are on the ground. And if they have to make their voices heard, then they must form a serious coalition. Let them work as one, not divided. And working for the benefit of the people, not for themselves. Because a lot of these guys already fighting are fighting even against their own people. If you see the people on the ground actually rising up and saying, no, enough is enough, we do not want this thing anymore, it's simply because you can't claim that you are fighting for people and then you are at the same time chopping some of their fingers. You are at the same time killing some of them. You are at the same time doing... Some people will say that those things will come during war. But I will be sincere to say this. You can't be fighting for people and then harming them at the same time.
Okay.
So we need to... They should re-strategize. Look for a way to come together and look for a better way to deal with the issue than keep on fighting themselves and claiming that they are fighting for us.
Okay. Andrew Natemi Bako, they say, whereas France maintains considerable interest in Cameroon, including significant economic and security operations, but has not adequately used its influence to stem atrocities committed in the Anglophone regions or support stronger international action to seek resolution to the conflict. Are they outrightly blaming France here?
Mr. Leo, if France is to be blamed, I think that the people who blame France also have a point, but we also need to have ourselves to be blamed, because most of the problems are not only caused by the West. Some of the problems are also caused by us, like where we are today in those two regions. It is of our own making. The monster we have created there, we have become victims of our own making. So let us be honest if we are going to make a way forward. Now, in looking at from what Jarvis was talking about and what other the other panelists was talking about of the Senate and the document which was sent to the government of Cameroon, I will tell you that there are non-governmental organizations that are already following a procedure to sue the United Nations Human Rights Organization because of its failure worldwide to protect human rights. We have seen in different parts of the world where you have government repression and the human rights stood by and watched and did nothing. In Sudan, where we had 800,000 people that died, there the United Nations Human Rights said they will never sit by and allow this kind of genocide take place. But it did not happen. It was not too long of most recent where we had the South Sudan war, where we had 50,000 people that died. So going to all many cases, the human rights have stood by and have not been able to do anything. So let them not claim that they should not violate human rights in Cameroon. I've given you statistics of people that die daily in America. We don't have those records here. So human rights should focus in America and make sure that the people's rights are granted there. That is my point. Now, coming now back, Mr. Liu, to what is happening in Cameroon. Now, I want to say it this way so that people can really understand what is happening on ground. If you now talk on that, the reason why America is focused on what is happening in Cameroon here, so that it may not cause the soil of Cameroon to become a place where terrorists can hide out and plan attacks over embassies. But what are those boys doing over there? Do they not sit in the West and plan terrorist attacks on their own people? Here in Cameroon, we saw that even on social media. So are they claiming that their own terrorists are different from our own terrorists? We are dealing here with human lives and blood are being shed. So there's no difference with what Osama bin Laden was doing with what these people are doing. There's no difference. Let us be clear on those things. So they should not begin to bring some kind of terminology as if it is what they will say that matters. That document, as far as I'm concerned, Mr. Leo, is invalid. I will say it again. By the second article of the United Nations Charter, the 7th Charter, states clearly that the United Nations has no right to violate the sovereignty of any member state. But we saw, as Mugabe spoke, that it showed that clearly that there are some people who are above that law. When NATO and Obama went to Libya, that law was violated. The due process was not followed. So let us keep all these things aside and let us come back to where we are, Mr. Liu. Talking about the root cause, if they are stating in that document about the root cause, do they not know that Cameroon does not own a currency and it is using the French CFA? If we are going back to the root cause, you should understand that our problems are being created from our history. And the history is, in those days, France was busy signing treaties with our kings and our chiefs to sell out our land, and those treaties lasted for so many years. And Cameroonians must understand that that is where the government is been trying its best, as I've seen as a political analyst and a Pan-African, and that is the only time, Mr. Liu, I will tell you that when an international document like this comes, I will defend my state. But when it comes to our own local affairs, I will have where I will blame the government. So the government of Cameroon has been slowly and gradually moving itself away from that colonial system. That's why I'm telling you that the UN now might talk. In South Sudan, what was happening there? France was there. China was selling weapons. I have official documents of weapons that were shipped from China to South Sudan for that war. What did America do? They sat quiet, but they obtained that document. But they sat quiet. They did not do anything. Lives were being lost there because they were selling arms. The war that these people are being fighting down, do we produce weapons in Cameroon or in Nigeria? The answer is no. Those weapons are all shipped from abroad. It means that we have people that are having interest in the war and will not want the war to stop. How then do you go again, Mr. Leo, to solve a problem or to call the armed separatist fighter on it? How do you talk with a government that has 10 heads or 20 heads, Mr. Leo? How is that possible? The people are divided. It's like a snake that has 20 heads. How do you talk to one man who has split his own region into many, many heads? It's just like you have 350 parties in Cameroon and you tell me that Cameroonians are interested to have change in this country. I will tell you that no. 300 and different opinions called political parties just to derail and to distort the Cameroonians. That they were coming as savior to come and save Cameroon. It's the same thing you are seeing in those two regions. A small group who said they want to set the country and give freedom to the people who are being marginalized have now the very people become now victims. Two people are fighting but they are not facing each other. You are facing by the people you claim that you want to protect. Mr. Leo, that is why I'm telling you that there was no need if these people wanted to have a body whereby the government can talk to. What is the need why you have this party, you have this group, you have this group, you have this group, and then among all the separatist fighters leaders, they don't even agree to themselves. So it makes it difficult for one to say, we want to talk to you people. It's very difficult. So, Mr. Leo, I will still come back again to say that, as in my final statement, to say that if they want us to solve the root core of this problem, they should tell their colleague France to leave Cameroon and allow the people to remove their reserve from Swiss and manage and have their own monetary fund whereby they can have the right to manage their own economy. You cannot expect a people to be free and when yet you condition them with a currency which you brought in Ouattara in 2010 to come and review the devaluation of that currency, which is tied to reaching Europe all the time. It doesn't go like that, Mr. Leo.
The resolution for the states that whereas I'm sure towards the end, it says whereas there is a significant Cameroonian diaspora in the United States, to show the link, the partnership that exists between Cameroon and the United States. And Cameroon is a long-standing security partner and aid recipient of the United States, participating in the Trans-Sahara Counter-Terrorism Partnership led by the Department of State, and in United States supported efforts to counter Boko Haram and the Islamic State of West Africa, both of which have mounted terrorist operations in the far north region of Cameroon since 2014. Now, therefore, be it strongly condemns abuses committed by state security forces and armed groups in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, including extrajudicial killings and detentions, the use of force against civilians and non-violent protesters, torture, rape, kidnappings, and other forms of violence against women, and violations of the freedoms of press, expressions, and assembly. Urge all parties to Anglophone conflicts in Cameroon, including political opposition groups. That is, they want the problem to be solved, not as an external issue, but as a Cameroonian problem.
Mr. Liu, thank you very much. I guess because I came later, I was not able to
follow up.
No, to say certain things here. Just permit me to make a small comment before I come to you.
Yeah, go on.
I want to congratulate the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation.
Okay.
Whose effort led to this resolution, because all the material that was put at the disposal of the U.S. Senate was produced by the CDN. So that said, the question you asked, Mr. Ibako, simply boils down to, for long, many people have held Cameroon as France's plantation. That is why the U.S. is saying that, the U.S. Senate is saying that, whereas France has so many economic and security interests in Cameroon, but we are not seeing them doing anything. The problem, you see, look, the problem why this crisis has been going on for 4 years and counting is because, it's not because the Anglophone diaspora is fighting each other. No, that's not the reason. The reason is that no country in the world was buying the crisis. No country in the world was standing either for the separatists, for the Southern Cameroonians, or for the Republic of Cameroon. They just stood all and they were watching. And you see, during the international webinar that was organized by the CDN, international statesmen who were invited said, we advise you strongly to lobby for at least one state to sell your problem. And what you see the US doing here is actually playing that role of the person who is selling the problem to the others. Because if you don't have any state that carries that this war on the international community table, nobody will listen to you. It is not because the government of Cameroon is too strong or the ambassadorial fighters are too strong. No. It's because nobody was interested. No country came in front to say, okay, let me champion this cause. People have been talking about Swiss talk. What has Switzerland ever done? Now, let us see to buttress what I'm saying. Let us look at Resolution 4 sub A of this document. Suffice it to say that it is not an injunction that the U.S. Senate is giving to Cameroon. They have come out with a political roadmap for their government. They are not talking to Cameroon government. Urges the government of Cameroon to, first of all, they say 3, affirms that the United States government continues to hold the government of Cameroon responsible for safeguarding the safety, security, and constitutional rights of all citizens regardless of their region of origin or the regions in which they reside and their religious beliefs or political views. 4, urges the government of Cameroon to A, initiate a credible, inclusive, good faith effort to end the armed conflict in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon by addressing the root causes of the crisis and grievances and seeking non-violent solutions to resolve the conflict, including possibly involving an independent mediator in negotiations. You can see here clearly that they are not limiting the negotiation to the Swiss talks. Choose your own, choose anyone. But they are recommending that the government should get.
There should be an independent
mediator. They are saying that we have noticed that France has failed. France is seen to be the parent of this Cameroon state, but it has failed. So we cannot allow this humanitarian calamity to continue. Let us see what can be done. And I think this is a message of good hope, because when one state steps forward now to put this crisis on the table, we can now start imagining that there can be hope in the horizon, that someday somebody will listen to us, because later on in this resolution they ask on the international community, they call on the international community to also join forces with the US and even the UN Security Council to be interested in it. You can see that in fact they are championing the cause to end this Anglophone, this civil war in Cameroon. So now you ask the question now concerning
broad-based dialogue for everybody.
Yes, broad-based dialogue for everyone, including even opposition parties. Yeah. Now it comes back to what I was saying. You see, they are not limiting the solution to any particular group. You see, I have been saying here time with that number that those who, for the time being, are talking for Southern Cameroon don't have any legitimacy.
Okay.
And yesterday, some fellow tried to challenge me on Facebook that because he is a Cameroonian, he has the international right. Oh God, legitimacy is not negotiable, sir. You either acquire it by election or by referendum or by, your mandate. You must have a mandate from the people. It's not because there's no such thing as legitimacy by origin. It doesn't exist. You must get a clear mandate from the people. So all these guys talking outside their problem is nobody here, back home here, mandated them. Sisi Kwayok Tabesu and by a small group voted him president. Did you participate, Mr. Kum? Did I participate? Did Professor Makatu participate? You see, they don't have a popular mandate, and that is a problem. So we are happy that at last somebody has stood up to carry this crisis to the international community and say, please, enough is enough. Let there be a solution.
Yeah, and what should be that solution? Cameroonians should give their mandate, or Anglophone should give their mandate to somebody now?
The thing is that the problem with mandate comes handy when we are talking of negotiations.
Yeah, but
no, there's no problem with that.
What if,
Mr. Leo, there's no problem with that.
Yeah, tell me.
The document that was presented by the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation addressed that issue, so there is no problem.
Where is your legitimacy going to come from?
When the time comes, right? Either there will be a referendum wherein the people will choose their representatives, or some other mechanism can be worked out, like all those groups that are working. If the population says, okay, we accept that SACO should represent us, or SACO and Antisiku should represent us, or the even three, because that's one of the mechanisms that the CDN evolved. They said, okay, we can take them in series. We can take 3-3 to manage a triumvirate that can manage for about 6 months. After them, another one comes until the negotiations are over. That is another possibility. But you can also ask the people. Look at the initial one, the consortium. Nobody elected them, but the population adopted them. Their mandate was confirmed by the population. You see, so that can also happen.
Yes, the U.S. Senate is passing a resolution. It's not the first. They even cited the European Union Congress that are also Parliament that passed a resolution. Is it anything to write home about? Should Cameroonians be, especially Anglophones, be enthusiastic? Should they be happy? It's just, like I said earlier on, a déjà vu, eh? And when we talk of that they should organize themselves for possible inclusive dialogue, how should this work out if the major national dialogue failed?
All said and done, and we should be able to be communicating to the viewers, Cameroonians in particular, that we are not hopelessly looking at the future that some armed groups, both on the side of the state and the people who are carrying guns, have taken us hostage. I think if the average English-speaking Cameroonian outside did not accept elements of the reason why these guys are still carrying arms, we will not still be having ghost towns on Monday. We will not still be having ghost towns. So the issue here, we are talking about legitimacy and the causes or the reason why they are fighting is real. But the point here is that we are inviting, because of our divisive nature, inviting hawks, inviting opportunists to come in and take the booty even before the fight comes to an end. You know, there was one time the French foreign minister came to Cameroon. While this crisis was going on, I think that's 2018, if I'm not mistaken the date. And this is what they told the people in Jicam, that the French government is ready to put X amount of money at their disposal for them to invest massively in the northwest and the southwest regions. Now, for somebody who is talking entrepreneurship and all of that, you don't invest somewhere because you love the people. You invest somewhere because you have seen an opportunity to make profit. You have seen an opportunity to create an impact and even control the persons in terms of economic gains and so on and so forth. Having said, whatever the Jicam people and the French people are thinking in their own, in the guise of their own interest of exploiting, you will see when this thing they call reconstruction takes off. Because of the fact that we have also concentrated on fighting without also building our skills, it is the same persons who are sitting on the margin, just watching us killing ourselves and dividing ourselves, who coming to take all the reconstruction projects, and will still become the paupers and still complain. Strategically, that's what I am concerned. That's what I'm concerned. Now, when I even hear the last speaker talked about legitimacy, I was a typical player when we had the All-Anglophone conference in Boya, 93. When you saw the way this thing snowballed when it started, there was not actually a particular person who said that this thing is our thing. It was just a group just sitting like this and talking about articulating the same thing that these other guys who went to Europe. Because when you look at the whole of this thing, the source of these guys who are at the US now, they were a creation of what they witnessed. Some of them had their parents say after the resolution of the All-Anglophone conference. When they went out to the university, remember, it is not coincidence. 93, that's when the University of Boya started. 93, 94, 95. All of those series of years, there was this, what they call strike action, and people were being gunned down by persons who thought that people had no right to air their opinion. Because you cannot be giving somebody something that they know that this is how the thing is supposed to be. You call something a university, and in other places, people come with an idea, and you start limiting that, no, no politics is discussed here, politics for politicians and all of those. It start giving people alternative now to start looking for other ways to pass their same message. And before we reach now where we start talking about arms, really, these young people already in Boya were already killing their administrators, burning places and all of that. It created rebellion. Some of them were dismissed. And the same guys who have erupted now in the US without anger. Why am I bringing this story? To deny somebody his nationality because he has taken a second whatever citizenship. That is one of the greatest human rights abuse. It's not because there is something in our law that says that when you take a second nationality, you are counsel of your birthright. Every person will fight back. Why did we come up to now with all the things that we say about the Grand National Dialogue, where they accepted and adopted that they should adopt double nationality in this country? Why? What is delaying that particular recommendations to be put into law, so that we get these people? Because a lot of these persons want to come back to this country. Some of them, they are silently dreaming that using arms, because they have used other type of diplomacy and all of that, it is not working. Even the people that barrister is talking about the coalition for dialogue and this, all of those people, they are Cameroonians who have taken a second nationality, and by law of the Cameroonian whatever, they have lost their Cameroonian nationality. I'm talking about the people who are financing that thing outside there in Europe and America. When you look at the people who are financing it, they have double nationality in most cases, and these guys are seeing themselves as not being able to come back to this country. Leo, you don't understand what it means when a Cameroonian comes and reach the airport in Douala and he's put back to the plane to go back, because somebody has said this person is not a Cameroonian. And then in the same country, you see people who are also carrying double nationality.
A Cameroon wants to take a visa to come home, eh?
That's the point.
That way, okay.
That's the point.
Yes, Tamai Jarvis, the resolution reads, whereas the United Nations Resident Humanitarian Coordinator for Cameroon stated on January 24, 2019 that Cameroon can no longer be a forgotten crisis. It needs to be high on our agenda. And on June 22nd, 2020, a group of former war leaders and 5 Nobel Peace laureates called on the United Nations Security Council and the United Nations Secretary General, the African Union, the Commonwealth of Nations, and La Francophonie to ensure that Cameroon's Anglophone conflict is on the agenda of the forthcoming UN Security Council meeting and all UNOCA sessions before the UN Security Council meeting. But seemingly nothing is moving in that direction.
There are two things that give a reason why it's not moving. One, the local political front in Cameroon. Two, the interest in terms of the geopolitics. One, the local political front. The local political front has a great role to facilitate this. When I talk about this, we are talking about political parties like that of the Reform Party, that of the SDF, that of the UPC, that of the CRM, and all these political parties. If we have a coalition of these political parties are struggling and ensuring with one voice, like we had a coalition of dialogue cited there by Senior Barrister Ashu, it is a catalyst for this document or for this crisis to be tabled at the United Nations. Remember that who has the mandate? These local politicians, the political parties like that of Reform Party of Senior Barrister Ashu Emmanuel, that of the Social Democratic Front, that of Cabral Libya, and all, if they come up with one voice and issue a strong communique that this is what is happening in our country, the international community takes them more seriously and more credible because they have mandate. They have been going for elections, and in one way or other, some of them have representatives in the local assemblies like the Cameroon's National Assembly and the Senate. So thus, they will take this person serious. Now, as long as this local political front, like Senior Barrister Ashu of his party, that of Maurice Kamto, that of the chairman of Undi, whom I know has worked so much in talking about the Anglophone crisis, as long as they don't come as a team, as one voice, to voice concern and send out a strong communique, then the international community will still be playing a ping-pong game. Number two, the vested interest. Regardless of how we see it, like Atem Ebako said that the NGOs that are coming to sue human rights organizations for not protecting human rights. I laugh because where are they suing them to? If you look at the United States is not a signatory to the International Criminal Court of Justice, and the judges at the ICC are not accountable to anybody. The judges are accountable to countries who have vested interests on African affairs and some few Arab affairs that have powers. Now the issue there is they have their interests. Each country, like the 5 countries, we have the 5 permanent members, those who have the veto power, as long as their interests are not met. Remember that America never had interest in this conflict until the government of Cameroon and alongside the separatists took the war to America and gave them a position of bargaining. Now the separatists who are in America are American bargaining power. When the real dialogue will come to place, America is using it as their bargaining power. Now, in terms of why that has not been on the table, it's simply because of their interest. Remember, when the genocide happened in Rwanda, Americans or the United, the whole world said never again. And when it happened in Sudan, they said never again. But have you asked yourself why, despite the never again, it keeps happening? It's because of interest. It's because of the look at how does this affect the geo-interest of our nation? How does this benefit our home politics? How does it benefit our home economy? How does it benefit our home corporate social responsibility? I earlier said there are 5 principles that United States or other foreign bodies will consider when they have to intervene. 1 is a humanitarian crisis. 2 is their interest. 3 is the crisis in that area, a threat that terrorists can come and infiltrate and plan attack to their nearby businesses. 4, they start looking at how bad women and children are treated. Before now, they look at their business. As long as the home front conclusively, so that keep your question on track, as long as the local politicians or local political parties, I'm expecting Senior Barrister Ashu to tell us what politicians in their life are doing to help this United States resolution to move forward. After this United resolution has been issued out, what have the political parties leaders like that of Senior Barrister Ashu, Maurice Kamto, as SDF chairman, and all, what have they done to come together to react to this and say, okay, we welcome this, and now we have been sitting on our laurels, it's time to take back the command. Remember, nobody elected the no-state armed groups. Nobody elected the members of the Coalition for Dialogue. Nobody elected them. The only elected officials we know is President Biya and his team. And now, alongside the local political parties, that we know that these are registered parties in Cameroon and carry the mandate of the people. So if these political parties don't pick up from this communique, this is time for them to pick up on this communique, to come up as a team. So we have seen this communique and we are accepting it, and we are tabling it out to the world that we accept this resolution, and we are selling the case of Cameroon to the state. To now, as Barrister Ashu said, Senior Barrister Ashu said, they should sell it to a state. These political parties have the power to sell it than Ayoktabe, than the IG-led faction of Sako, than Ebenezer Akonda, Jomba Akuro, Sokadet, etc., etc., etc. These parties must sit up. I expect now Senior Barrister Ashu and his team and his colleagues of political parties to tell us what they need to do henceforth to ensure that the peace-loving people of North and Southwest can sleep in peace, the businessmen and women can do their businesses, and we can live as one in the old Cameroon cradle of our fathers.
Okay, thank you very much, Travis, coming in there from Kenya. Now, what happens after this resolution? Because this is not. Yeah, what should happen after this? We'll go back to prayers.
That's a good one. Mr. Leo, it is obvious that if we have to follow the same pattern of things, nothing will happen after the resolutions. Why? Because it will just be business as usual. But I just love what I heard Jarvis saying there. I think now most of our political parties should be able to prove to us that they have the Anglophone in heart, where they should be able to unite together, come up with a strong position, which they should use now to sell to the nation which they think that can become a mediator or could carry their problem to the UN resolution, UN Council, Security Council. But I believe that, like I said earlier, Cameroonians have the knife and the yam. We have to push all those who are sitting in the parliament, in the Senate from the Anglophone section of Cameroon. They should be able to stand up and present our case. They were not elected to go sit and eat for themselves. It is already too much that they are drinking the blood of people. When they sit and do nothing and say nothing, and some of them even reject and refuse that there's no crisis, they are indirectly eating the flesh and drinking the blood of persons. Because people will keep dying while they keep refusing the facts. And so in relation to my own position, I want to say we might sit down and look at the resolutions that have been given, and we are excited and say, oh, this America is going to take it now as a political, in fact, it's a roadmap for them to intervene. But I want to say that I'm not in any position preferring that America should step into this crisis. Neither am I preferring that any foreign body should interfere in this crisis. I would prefer that our own people who might believe that they are supposed to be patriotic, who might believe that they are supposed to be in love of their nation, who might believe that they are supposed to love their people, should be the ones that should stand up to solve the problem. But if you look at it, Mr. Liu, for the past years, this is 4 years going to the 5th, we have a group of politicians, we have civil society persons whom are talking, but nobody is actually intervening in real sense. We have been speaking and speaking, and nothing is changing. So I think that this is high time for Cameroonians. Last time I called on the women and the youths to be the ones who step it. I heard the barrister said that we need to be able, there's need for the people to stand and give power.
Legitimacy.
Yeah, he used the word legitimacy. I think that the people do not need to still give that legitimacy to a particular individual. This time around, they need to rise up to
exercise, okay.
Go to the streets, march up to, like I said last time, that if Mr. Biya has refused to solve the problem, Cameroonians can go to Biya and tell him to stop the problem.
Okay. Hi, Mr. Liu. I have a question for Senior Barrister Ashu. Is he telling us that so long as CPDM's government does not change its stance, the people of the Southwest and Northwest should see no peace? Gerard is Gerard writing from London. Good evening to you, Gerard. Hello, in the studio. All measures stated by U.S. Senate are not new. I think the U.S. Senate should apply different measures because there is no time. It's Bobe writing from Com. Good evening to you, Bobe. Hello, Mr. Liu. Thanks for your hard work in this nation. All these questions of who to dialogue with is very simple. Let the government give chance for Cardinal Tumi AA initiative, and from the conference they will know who to dialogue with. Ashu is writing from Bamenda. This one says, Mr. Liu, don't sell a goat and keep holding the rope in your hand. Okay, if Cameroon is independent, let France let us be. Mr. Liu, whenever there is unrest in Africa, the West profits greatly. The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia ordered the killing of a journalist, a Saudi national inside Saudi Arabia consulate in Turkey. American presently stood up to say the Saudi is our friend. Those of you waiting for America to come and redeem you, Unawaka, fine. Raymond is writing from the United Arab Emirates. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The U.S. Senate has not been able to pass a resolution for gun control and mass shooting in the USA, so they cannot pass that resolution. Yeah, yes. Ebako, definitely, I'll ask the same question to you. What should be the way forward after this resolution? Do we just talk and then we go back to you people, the men of God, to start praying?
Mr. Liu, this is not a resolution to me because the documents will not be sent from the U.S. that some white men have sat there and made analysis on the behalf of every Cameroonian without coming to Cameroon to consult the individuals who are the actors in the game. So they cannot make a decision on the behalf of everybody without consulting us. Number two is just like the COVID-19 of the WHO. They sat there and decided that they will come out with a vaccine that should work for everybody. You don't make analysis without coming here to see what our own researchers are doing. So it must be a balanced thing. If America wants to find a way to assist us, tell them to give us 2 seats, permanent seats at the the UN National Security Council. At that level, we are being marginalized to start with. So if Cameroonians want to look at things critically, let them tell the US that if you want to solve our problem, put 2 permanent members from the African continent that will represent the African affairs, so that instead of us having the UN speaking for Africa, speaking for what is happening in Cameroon, and leaving other areas where they have failed to do so, showing that they have genuine concern for us, Mr. Liu, I will tell you that it is a typical lie. As far as I'm concerned, when America entered in Palestine, remove Osama bin Laden, what did they tell the government of Palestine? They said they owe them no apology. Did they send a warrant of arrest of Osama bin Laden? But they went in because it was an individual who was a threat to their own society. So why was it that when the Cameroon government also sent 15 warrant of arrest out there for certain individuals to be arrested, that warrant of arrest was never executed? So, Mr. Liu, some people are not above the law. I still keep saying, which I want to believe this is the end of my speech, when it comes to international issues, I will defend the state. When it comes to our national issues, I will blame the government in areas where they have failed. But as far as I'm concerned, Mr. Liu, there may be the other panelists looking at it as a legal advisor, but we know how things run in court. When you come to court, there's always a judge. When a lawyer speaks in court, you think that he has said it all, or he has won the case. By the time the other lawyer begins to speak, you realize that there are loopholes in what the other man has said. So I am saying that that document, Mr. Liu, is not valid, and it's not a document that Cameroonians should focus on. What we should do in Cameroon, like I have said times without number, Mr. Liu, we are faced today with the reality of the days. We have the bias regime that is in power. We have the decentralization put in place. We have the public independent conciliators for the 2 regions. The question now is that, Mr. Liu, because those are the realities of the day, what do we do as Cameroonians? Understanding where we are coming from, how can we come together to build our nation whereby it can favor us? At the end of the day, the government is us. If we decide today 15 million people of Cameroonians go on the street, the BR government will take we jump out of the window.
Like what
we saw in Mali.
Like what Professor Mark Anthony said earlier on, you are a political leader. For Ferdinand is asking that if you say the other persons don't have legitimacy to speak on behalf of Anglophones who gave you pass to speak on their behalf. But
No, that's a different thing. I'm a political leader. I am an authorized voice. So what he's saying is total trash.
Okay.
But the discussion was whether, so long as the CPDM government cannot do anything, should Cameroonians be allowed to die? I think that's what I heard him say. Okay. You asked the previous speakers the way forward. What will happen after this? I want to remind Mr. Ibako that unlike what he was saying, that Americans stay in their country and say things about Cameroon that they don't know. First of all, Cameroon, above Cameroon here, we have an American satellite. They are more informed about Cameroon than you. Whatever happens here, they see it live. They don't even need to send people here. Secondly, they have their agencies here. Their people are on the ground. They are working with us every day. Since most of them are black in color, you don't even know they're Americans. So, the third one is that, you see, the work of, I started by congratulating the CDN, and I want to tell you that the CDN worked for 6 months. We worked for 6 months. I was personally a co-chair of the commission for governance. So, contrary to what you are saying, the information that they have was substantial and really documented. If you want, I can help give you some. We have documented information. Thanks to the CDN, so many things that were hidden were brought to light. And if you go through that this resolution, you will see that they are facts that you cannot contest. They are clear. They are clear facts. Okay. Resolution 6. The way forward. If the government decides to do nothing, are we going to remain and die? These guys are aware of the nature of the government. Previously, I read some other pathways. They say they hold the government responsible. Listen to this one. Urges the Department of State, Department of the Treasury, and the United States Agency for International Development, in coordination with other relevant federal departments and agencies, to consider imposing targeted sanctions on individual, government, and separatist leaders responsible for extrajudicial killings. He was talking of people who cut off children's hands. Extrajudicial killings, torture, or other gross violations of internationally recognized human rights. Press the government of Cameroon to provide unfettered humanitarian access to vulnerable population in the northwest and southwest regions. Support credible efforts to address the root causes of the conflict and to achieve sustainable peace and reconciliation, and efforts to aid the economic recovery and fight coronavirus in the northwest and southwest regions. Now, he was talking of reconstruction.
From this, can we get a clear position of the U.S. from this?
Yes.
Yeah. What is the position? Because I'm sure you raised that. He
was talking of reconstruction. I want to remind him that the people who were supposed to carry out reconstruction were the UNDP. Inside the UNDP, the US is there. This is the majority. They are the big people who are financing. Yeah, but at one time, Tigwe said what the government was doing about reconstruction was a child's play. I mean, he didn't support. America did not support the government efforts at reconstruction. So, who is going to provide the money?
So, what are they saying here? Are they not saying?
They are saying here.
Yes.
They are recommending that the Department of State. Because at one time we saw a list of individuals that was parading about 25 of them. Later the State Department said, no, they are not taking a decision. But this is an authorization given to the State Department now to bring those people to book. Look, they say, and prosecute.
On both sides?
Yes, on both sides. Prosecute them.
Okay.
Look, sanction them and prosecute. You know how they prosecute them? International Criminal Court.
But the problem now is, how do you get...
Cameroon is not a member of... Cameroon has not signed the Rome Treaty, right?
Yes.
As the US side.
Cameroon has not signed.
As the US side.
Okay, I want to remind you that
as the US side,
the Security Council has jurisdiction to authorize prosecution against a member country that has not signed. So when the U.S. Senate calls on
is propaganda. When
we saw
on video they killed George Floyd.
Okay.
What the people who killed
we shall see whether
on the street as we still speak today.
We shall see whether people in Cameroon will
not God. They cannot come here and impose on us. Are they God?
They
are not gods.
They shall say
about what you are reading.
Let us see.
You forgot about what you are reading.
We forgot about it.
You forgot about what you are reading.
Was that the one you're voting?
Propaganda. Who wrote it?
Okay.
Who wrote it?
The issue here is that you have asked a question and we are seemingly running off the program without answering. What is the way forward?
Yes.
The issue now, I think we should also try to see the possibility of what Cardinal Tube wanted to project, to see how that particular from within the national territory now get a consensual arrangement where people can actually, because now it's a people's fight. I'm saying that the people are the victim. I'm saying that if you look at the desperate condition under which people are living today, they are only looking for somebody who come like a third party from within. Because every other actor who is peripheral has demonstrated their limitation. Either they are sponsoring with finance, either they are sponsoring with weapons, but now the people are based on survival. They are based on subsistence. And the only way is to elicit confidence, is to ensure that those who want to go to school can go to school. How do we do all of that? It is not about making things sound impossible. It's making about people see hope in themselves, that they can see put themselves together and come back and do what is doable. And I love one of the things that one of us said here. Engage these same people who are representing us, whether they got their mandate through minority absent or majority absent during the electoral campaigns, electoral process that took place in this country.
Okay.
Engage those people and let them know that.
Okay. We have a contribution from Boya through Tiku Felix. Can we listen to Tiku Felix before we quit the studio?
Mr. Leo, Good evening, dear panelists seated, and a happy and a prosperous new year to you all. Mr. Leo, at times you are forced to ask yourself questions like, what is the game that these people are actually playing or trying to play? Is it that a very powerful nation like America can influence or turn the table and put some certain things that will be able to stop this conflict in Cameroon? We have had senators like Jim Rich and Ben Cardin who've been calling for an end to the violence in Cameroon and for an inclusive dialogue to address the underlying political tensions that are at the root of the conflict between the state and the Anglophone separatists. We've also had series of senior U.S. officials who have worked to highlight the crisis in Cameroon. Assistant Secretary for African Affairs Thibault Nagy has engaged in direct and personal diplomacy aiming to influence the situation. We've had Congresswoman Karen Bass, who is chair of the House of Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Africa, who has also been resolute in condemning abuses and has worked on a bipartisan basis to clearly communicate U.S. concern and support for peace talks to Biya government, including a resolution introduced in the House of Representatives last year, or I think last 2 years. The Trump administration, on her part, Mr. Leo, removed Cameroon from the AGOA list and withdrew military assistance to the country. Mr. Leo, these are very good initiatives. But where has it taken Cameroon to with regards to the crisis? Where? The truth, Mr. Leo, is Cameroon is a case in which concern is in Washington does not translate into effective influence. It can be painful to reckon with the limited capacity of the United States, even other external powers, to bring seriousness of purpose to this urgently needed political dialogue, Mr. Leo. It is obvious that civil conflicts with political roots cannot be resolved without domestic will and leadership consent. But Cameroon's political class have decided to be hardened on the issue as well. Very unsupportive to external influence, while claiming to have everything under control, despite the fact that people keep dying. Mr. Leo, we've had a series of international international response led by the US. Yes. Some multilateral organizations as well and international civil societies. Let me just give some examples, Mr. Leo. On the 28th of November 2016, the US State Department published a communique calling for dialogue in the Anglophone regions and calling on the government of Cameroon to respect fundamental freedoms. In December, the UN Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Central Africa condemned the violence and asked Cameroon to respect minorities. On the 18th of January 2017, the president of the African Union Commission expressed concerns about acts of violence, arbitrary arrests and detentions, and called on the government to seek dialogue. The UN Special Representative for Central Africa visited Yaoundé in February and April. He met the consortium leaders in prison and signed a communique calling for the release of prisoners, the restoration of internet and dialogue. On the 23rd, during President Biya's visit to Vatican, the Pope invited him to pursue dialogue. Invited him to pursue dialogue, Mr. Leo. The statement helped to secure an end to internet shutdown in March, but did not result in any moves towards the structural and constitutional reforms requested by the Anglophones. Where are we actually going to? Now the US Senate, with their usual condemning, has come up again. Should Cameroon government, Mr. Leo, still decide to be hardened, then the voice of the U.S. Senate with regards to the crisis is like a sheep that is trying to express anger in front of a hungry lion. No sense can be seen from it. But to be frank, Mr. Leo, the United States is well positioned to support a process that prioritizes the urgent needs of civilians and gives all parties a tremendously diverse country greater opportunity in the future should those vital domestic ingredients like the government losing their heart, accepting external influence, accepting to listen to the plea and to the support and to the contributions that the Cameroonian nationals who are within the country have.
Okay, we are out of time. We have to end here. Tomorrow we are going to have another edition with one-time JCI World President Roland Kmer. He's going to be our guest on the program tomorrow to tell us about what can be done to get Africa on its feet to take full advantage and then get its position amongst the big continents of the globe. We want to say thank you to you, Apostle, Professor, for coming. Thank you. We don't have time, please. Thank you for coming, Teme Bako. Thank you, Judge, Mr. Mufo. Thank you, and to you, Senior Barrister, and to you out there in Kenya, Tamai Jarvis. We equally say thank you, and to all of you who sent text messages. We are very grateful for your participation, and to everybody who helped to produce this program. We say thank you. Stay blessed. Bye bye.